Hey guys, Virginia Cheng Silvertip Badger. This one's dry. Craving shaving handle. I'm going to put this in some water. Some people just like to run badgers through with water and then start using them. If it's a finest badger that has tips that like to absorb the water and get a lot softer, then I think it needs more time. But this one is not that way. It's a silver tip. I don't think the tips are as treated. And so, but I don't know, it seems to work a little better if I soak it for just a few minutes while I'm prepping my other gear. I've already put, just a minute ago, some water on top of this puck of Williams mug soap. This is the modern Williams mug. The older version, I think, had a little bit more tallow. With the 2005, I'm not sure exactly when they altered the recipe, but this is close to what your grandpa used, but not exactly. His other one, the lather was richer. I think it was easier to whip up the great lather with Williams back then, but this is still a very slick soap, and it, as I've shown in recent videos, it does whip up a pretty good lather, and I think I'm liking this soaking in the mug like this and then lathering up kind of in the mug method that I've been doing. So we're going to use this Karve Christopher Bradley. Recently I used this same razor with a slightly shallower gap, and so we bumped it up today to the D plate. Yesterday, or the last time, was the C. I kind of skipped a day shaving, and so today it's a not 2 full days of growth, but 1.5. So it may tug a little bit more than it usually might. So we're looking at 58 uses on this feather. Here's my little, over on this end, my little counter where we're looking at the partial amount of dots. And here's the little mark that I put on the blade a while back. So let's go ahead and put it in. There is a new top cap that they've created at Karve. It's a Canadian company. It has these cutouts here and here for the blade tabs. I think it looks better visually. I really like the look that it contributes, the style it contributes to the razor. You've got similar patterning here on the end tabs and on the base plate. Now, you probably noticed this is shiny. I did hand polish that a little bit. Here's what the bead blasted finish normally looks like. But I'm a big fan of these. There are a few people out there, even our beloved cadenzer, Michael Friedberg, he doesn't like the blade tabs to be exposed. He says he's kind of scratched his ear or caused abrasions on his ear. Maybe he mentioned his nose as well, but I think he mentioned his ear. And so he likes to have them covered. Well, it's never really been a problem for me. And so I actually like the smaller head to work with myself. And I think most people don't have a problem with it. So here is the plate. You can see that it's the D. I don't use the D too often, but I really probably could. Now the D open comb is going to be kind of interesting because, see, the D solid bar is a great daily shaver for me. But then I moved up to the E solid bar and it was too rough. It just hit some kind of threshold to where there was no way I could shave with it. I may not have even completed the shave with the E. Now maybe that one I could have altered my technique and rode the cap a little bit or something to that effect, but that's not the way I shave, and so I passed on the E. I would later use the E when I had a really old blade that was really smoothed out, so I was able to use the E. So eventually I actually bought the F too. Now we're going to see we've got a smoothed out feather here with so many uses. Is this D open comb is said to be kind of equivalent in aggression to the E solid bar. So I'm interested to see how it feels. All right, the soap is pre-soaking. I'm going to throw some water on my face. You know what? I'm actually going to pause you, wash my face a little bit, because 1.5 days of my facial oils, could really hold us back. All right, there we go. Because Williams is not one of the soaps that has a lot of moisturizers and butters and things like that to help with post-shave feel and moisturization, it probably would have been fine. A great weapon to war against the facial oils that I have, but I just felt like doing that. All right, so we are ready to go ahead and load up. I'm going to go for a 30-second load here. I did put 2 teaspoons of water on the soap. I'm kind of keeping it similar to the boar use that I did earlier. And so let's just see what happens. A 30-second load, and we'll wait till the clock here. There we go at 0. You'll have to pardon a little bit of clinking. This is kind of a big handle, relatively speaking. There's not any room for me to put my fingers down in there to try to help with the sound. Originally, I came up with this idea to just mix up in the mug when I was just doing a test lather. And I thought, hey, what if I just pour some water in and almost treat it like a brownie. I had done these brownies where it was a single serve and it didn't taste very good, but the point was you just poured everything into the cup or mug, put it in the microwave for a while, you pulled it out and it was all done. There's no baking or anything like that. Well, along that same theory, concept, I said, well, what if I just put in X amount of water and then I loaded it and kind of waited for that lather to come out. Well, it turns out that was way too much soap, and that was, I don't know, 2 weeks ago. You can see that video if you want. Now, one nice thing here, see this badger is holding on to a lot of the water. The boar brush kind of instantly dumped a lot of the water just right out, and you see we need to keep that water in there because the soap needs the water to cream up into the lather. I love this brush because I think it's a terrific budget Silvertip. They're available on eBay. They're in China. But during these coronavirus days, don't worry. By the time it gets to you from China, the virus, I don't think it can survive the journey. Feel free to do your own research and make sure that's true. But this is a really inexpensive badger knot. It's very soft. It doesn't, if you like really firm knots, if you like a lot of backbone, then you might consider it floppy, but I definitely don't. I think it's got enough backbone to do where it's doing the job pretty well. Still pretty soft, and you combine it with one of the $8 handles from Maggard or AliExpress. You've got a pretty nice Silvertip at a low cost. Just get some silicone from the store, glue it in. Look at all this lather that's being generated here. Just going to kind of rake the excess back into the cup, into the mug. It's too thick right now. See the jaggedy tips and points near my goatee there for the lather. Needs to get, and that's one of the problems I'm working with face lathering here in the bowl. When you add water, it doesn't drip away, it stays in the bowl. But if you add too much water when you're face lathering, it's exactly what it does. And here, let's again scrape some more of this, because see, all this lather is kind of getting in my way. and that's concentrate. It's not really well hydrated yet. You can shave with it, but it kind of makes your skin dry out just a little bit, and it's not quite as slick. I don't think you get quite as good of a cut, a good feel during the cut process as when you've got enough water in your lather. A good, well-hydrated lather will protect you a lot better than something that still needs some more water. And while you're building, you don't have to keep going over your whole face like this. It's something I've learned. You can, while you're building your lather, just pick a section that's easy to work. I've put all 2 teaspoons in, and so since I started with 2, that's now 4 teaspoons in the lather. Trying to get that wetness. If you've got sensitive skin, you may want to switch to a bowl as well, because all this work, even with a soft brush, can, if you truly have sensitive skin, can irritate you. See, the lather's looking even better. It's getting there. Sometimes a paint motion like this, can be good. That's why I tilt my face over, because if the handle is pointed down, the water tends to follow gravity and come out the bottom of the handle instead of staying up with the lather. The good news is I'm definitely getting my face clean and scrubbed. See, that's why that bothers me so much with face lathering. I finally work up lather to the right consistency, but because it's a face and not a bowl, good lather that's wet tends to be the stuff that flies off. The dry stuff stays on your face. I want to keep the good stuff on there. But I want to become a better face latherer just for completeness. I think I'm starting to get the right consistency here. Finally, a little tedious. And the problem is, if I would have started with all that much water in the brush in the first place, it would have been really messy, because it just would have, in that beginning process, it would have just dumped out of the brush. I have had that happen before. And this is a nice soft brush. I've been scrubbing at my face for a while now. Feels good. And this is inexpensive. It's a great way to get into badgers if you don't have a big budget. I think maybe 20 bucks for this. This was a 24 millimeter knot, I think. And you can get cheap handles as well, like $8 from AliExpress. Shave Forge, if you want them a little quicker. I'm pretty sure Shave Forge buys theirs from the same source as AliExpress, but they cost a little bit more. So you might pay to have an American delivery rather than to wait a little bit longer for the Chinese type delivery. All right, how does this look? Kind of want to add just a little bit more water. So I am making round movements, which creates a well in the middle where I can add water. And that's kind of usually where I'm adding. I've done it via painting like this, and then putting a little bit on the side. I might try that a little bit more sometimes, but I don't quite feel like that is as good, but it might be. Maybe I should give it more of a chance. So today, Tom is the inspiration Tom made a, oh yeah, see, look at that texture right there. Look how wet it is. Look how how soft it is. And how elastic it is. It's not trying to keep its own shape. That's what we want. And this is the magical lather right here that people just don't even think you can get from Williams. Now, surely there's got to be a better way. You know, spending so much time adding water like I was, you know, to me that's a bit of a chore. Just rather do it in a bowl. But maybe there's a better way. And honestly, that goes with a bunch of soaps, not just Williams. You know, if you're face lathering, many soaps are like this, where you, to get them slick, to get them the right amount of slickness, you just have to add a bunch of water to them. And so face lathering is the challenge there. This is a light looking lather. It looks very well hydrated. Look, yeah, look at it on my skin. There's no rose. There's no farm rose. It's all just kind of, and it's slick. This is a very nicely hydrated lather. Let's just see how it shaves. It actually feels a little bit too wet, so that'll be interesting. All right, so the de-open comb with a feather that's been used 58 times. Let's see if this gap that I don't think I usually am able to shave with. Let's see if it tames the feather. It is tugging, kind of uncomfortably so. I do not enjoy this. So maybe the carve here does not have the geometry for the feather. It did with the Nasset. I was able to use the carve with the Nasset quite successfully, even when it got kind of old. But it looks like the feather, you know, obviously the feather behaves differently for a lot of people. But obviously for me, I'm sorry, not obviously, but the feather probably has a different grind angle than the Nasset does. And so that can definitely affect which razors treat it nicely. So that was a pretty rough Tuggy shave. The Fat Boy is much more comfortable at this age, and so I'll definitely be returning back to him for a few more shaves. I wanted to try the higher end of the carved line. Now what I could do is back off, go back to a B or something like that, instead of trying to go aggressive so quickly. Maybe this razor could handle it at the 100 use mark, but maybe it's not quite ready. Well, I know it's not quite ready to handle in the 50s. All right, let me rinse. Now, if you have a decent sized goatee, make sure you squeeze the water out of that, because if you have a carefully mixed ratio of lather with your brush, then your goatee water could mess that up. I grabbed some of the lather from the mug that I had saved, that I had put away. And it looks like I'll grab a little bit more. Now, one good thing about the tugginess of that first pass, it almost always has disappeared for me in subsequent passes. Just get through that first one, and it takes off enough hair to where you're okay for the others. Looks like maybe I need to add a little bit more water here, so I'm assuming that I do. Just kind of felt a little thin and a little dry. I can get a little bit more lather out of my mug. And this is something I have to deal with face lathering, is kind of reconstituting the ratios of the lather if your brush isn't able to hold all of your lather. With a bowl, you've got the full amount ready and you just dip back into it. You don't need to readjust any ratios or anything like that. All right, now since that first pass was Tuggy, let's keep with the grain pass for this second one and just see. Oh, now see, that is magical. All the nastiness has been pulled away, and we are now in happy land. It's almost enough to where, you know, if I was in a situation where I had to be conservative with my blades, I'd just chalk up that first pass to just the way things need to be, and then by the time the shave was done, I would forget all about that tugginess, because that was a very comfortable, smooth pass. So people say that feathers aren't sharp after a few uses. Well, I'm getting a great cut. All right, third pass. Let's dip in and get a little bit more out of the mug. I don't have to do really any scrubbing, because goodness knows we did plenty on that first pass. So we just now want to get use the brush to make sure our ratio is good on our face, that the hydration level is right, and just lay down a decent layer. And it doesn't have to be thick at all. If you've got tons of soap, sometimes I do lay it on thick just because it's there, you know, but it's not necessarily required at all. Very comfortable now. Now I'm curious as to whether the D open comb here, whether I could use it as a daily shave, or might try to compare it with the E sometime. My technique possibly could have improved a little bit to where I could use the E now, but maybe the D open comb, maybe I could shave with it every day, but the E solid bar not, because of the little extra gap it has. Who knows? And there we go. That's the third pass. Oh yeah, nice close shave. Happy with that. Nice creamy hydrated lather. Took a bunch of water. Still protected. Now I'm going to pause you for a second while I clean up and think about what I might do differently next time. Whether the load amounts seem to be pretty good. You know, because here I am, I've just got a little bit left in the mug that's actually lather, you know. So the 30-second load time seems about right. You know, not very much came off of me in the beginning, in terms of that kind of really wet brush starting to be worked onto my face. Not a lot of it, just some dripped off onto my shirt. So that might be the right load time, and it might be the right amount of water to put on top of the puck of soap. And so that might be about as good as a face lather is going to get with me and Williams. Comfortable. But yeah, because of the tedium of adding the water and just having to work it so much, I don't know that I would want to do that too much. I'd rather stick with the bowl. All right, pretty nice. Learning. Now my face does feel a little more tender than usual, and so this is Thayer's. It's a toner with some witch hazel in it. I think it's mostly aloe and things like that. It's alcohol free and it's unscented, and I just found that it's a little bit less of it runs into the drain if I apply it to my hand via this spray bottle. Nice even coverage. There we go. This is going to be a buffer. I might apply a alcohol-based aftershave in a minute, and so this I think will help to calm my skin down and not be quite so tender if I choose that route. You know, every time I use this knot, I am surprised about how much I enjoy it. I like the backbone. See, it springs back into position. It did lose one bristle this use, but it's really kind of young and it doesn't bother me at all. I have not used this thing 50 or 60 times, and so until I get to that point, I'm not going to worry about bristle loss very much at all, unless it's something like 30 or 40 per use. But this is an inexpensive badger that performs really well. And it's soft, it feels good. It doesn't feel like a cheap badger, at least to me. And I've felt some really soft badgers. Some treated fine, finest quality badgers, with the gel tips and things like that. I've felt some good things, and this is still nice. Looks like about 5½ teaspoons of water was used to during this shave. So there's that. So 30 seconds of loading and 5½ teaspoons of water. You know, that might be about as good as it's going to get. Now, what might be interesting is to take this same procedure, but instead of starting to lather on the face, go right into a bowl and start working it up. Seeing what happens. See if that's an easy way to a good Williams lather. Who knows? Now, I'm not affiliated with Virginia Cheng, who sold the knot for this razor, this brush. But if you want to take a look at those, they are on eBay. And Vig Shaving, I believe, is the username to look for. VIG Shaving. And they're over in China. And so this is the Silvertip 3-band. You can see the 3 bands. One, the dark, and then the light, dark, light. And it is a, you know, I'm really happy with this brush. Happy with the knot. And you can throw them, and this is a quality handle from Craving Shaving. You can put them in those sorts of things that you get off Etsy or whatever. Or you can just order a whip dog. Has some inexpensive handles that look pretty decent. Some different shapes to choose from. I've been very happy with Larry's service there at Whip Dog. And then Shave Forge is a US company that sells some of the same handles that you might see on AliExpress.com. And so there's some really good sources that you can get some handles from if you're interested in putting together your own inexpensive badger brush. All right. Well, I'm a happy camper. Let's see what kind of post-shave. You know, I used Seville the other day. I feel like using that again. It did me well, and I enjoyed the scent. It's kind of a barber shop that Will has put together at Barrister and Mann. It does have a little bit of alcohol. Let's see if I get any sting. A tiny bit. Almost don't even notice it, and it's gone. So, good technique, and that's one nice thing about a smoothed out razor blade. It still cuts the hairs, but not the skin, if you've got good technique and the right razor. All right, and a nice wet soap, and I definitely had that today. I would say that this lather was generally on the kind of the wet side of the zone of perfection. It wasn't right in between, but it was still in a really good zone that I like, just kind of on the wet side of that, which is just fine. All right, well, I'm really happy with that shave. My face has forgotten long ago about that Tuggy first pass, and it feels great. Oh yeah, the Williams scent just is barely, it's just a light soapy scent, and so it is easily overshadowed by any kind of aftershave you want to put on. I'm enjoying the Seville nicely. All right, well, I think that's it. On the coronavirus front, we are definitely having more cases pop up in our state, but it has slowed down with the recent shutdown of the stay-at-home order that was given by the governor. And so hopefully that is something that will keep the number of cases that have to be sent to the hospital. It'll keep that down to a manageable level, even though it may extend our time period. It may cause fewer hard decisions at a hospital if we just take a bunch of COVID cases to the hospital because it's just spreading so wildly. then unfortunately the doctors have to make tough decisions about how to give their attention to the patients and things like that, and that's not any good for anybody. So if we can slow it down, stay home if you've got any symptoms and all that stuff, and even if you don't, it's probably better just to stay home and hang out, find things to do, be creative, be resourceful. I've got a couple of kids, and I think I read a book one time, and it was good information, and it said one of the best things you can teach your kids is to be resourceful. And so let them be bored sometimes. Send them outside, even though they don't have any toys to play with. Let them be resourceful. But all right, keep yourself safe out there. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves, and I hope there's been something in this video that has helped you out. You take care. Good night.